Hi. Everything in focus? We good?
Yeah,
good
we're good. We're good. A little foggy in here. I got a new fog machine.
It is amazing.
We're just trying to figure out how to spice things up a little bit.
Yeah. Evan was over there back in that corner, like messing with it, and I literally couldn't see him, and he was standing up like he had just disappeared in the fog. So
it's fun to get toys, and
it looks awesome in here.
Yeah.
Hopefully it comes across on camera, but it looks sweet. I dig it.
We're going with it.
We're rolling with it. Hey,
Yeah.
so I got to speak at.
Oh yeah, give us an update on
I'm
how
a
that
college
went.
professor now, so
Congratulations.
no, I'm not. I'm just
You
being
wear
silly.
one of those little hats.
Yes, through it.
May your hats soar as high as your dreams.
I said that to them, actually. No, I didn't. It was really, really cool. I found myself I'm like, this was really like fun and rewarding. I think the class was pretty well engaged, as much as you can expect for
How many people?
19, 20-year-olds. There was maybe 20. 20 in there, and they all were on their CAD computers, and I brought my machine in and was doing my little thing here. So yeah, it was fun. They had good questions, and I don't know, hopefully it helped and brought some interest to the class. So
If you were their age, what do you think like they would have gotten the most out? Like if you were in their shoes learning from
Yeah.
you, like what do you think they would have gotten the most out of?
So they were very first year AutoCAD students, and the professor actually messaged me and told me this. He's like, you just completely blew their minds with AutoCAD and how fast you are at it. And I think that was the big takeaway from them. And hopefully it's encouraging, like you're learning this program now, but you can get really, really fast at it where it's not a creative block and it can be a tool that, so that's the goal. I hope I didn't discourage them, but I think that was the big takeaway. It was like, oh, wow.
Yeah, you could see it going one of two ways, like going to that and being like, that's super intimidating. I'm never going to be to that point. Or like, that's cool. Hopefully I can get there one day.
Yeah, right. So yeah, it was cool though. I'm teaching another seminar at the Career Center for the high school.
Cool.
For Valpo.
Is there like a
this week.
AutoCAD class or something?
Yeah, this is not the AutoCAD class though. This is the construction class. But I figured it'd be cool to just talk about the design process so they can understand it better. Understand like what the office side goes through as they're sending them these prints and all that. So yeah, I'm excited.
Cool. Good job.
Hey, thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
What's up with you?
Last week I feel like was a lot busier with Easter, but just kind of doing a lot of those little things that I've been talking about. Like you probably can't see because of the fog, but we have like a pinball machine that we put in back there in the bar area. I've got a little like gun game, vintage games that we've got over there. I got those cardboard food holder things for the kids, like vintage cars, like old Mustangs and stuff that we put the chicken tenders in the fries. So the ideas that
really
I got
cool.
from that place in Florida, we're starting to try that here. And then, so it's been cool to like look on the cameras and see kids playing with this. It's like, that's what we want,
Yeah, right.
Working on getting a gumball machine that I'm going to put up there and just little things that stick in kids' minds to keep them and their families wanting to come back, So working on the things like that, and the usual stuff that I have to do, and then gearing up for Mother's Day, which is in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So
Do you need extra staffing for Mother's Day, or is it just like
it's just kind of all hands on deck?
okay.
Maybe
you're not,
try to get
you're
an
not
extra.
short-term hire. It's not that bad, right?
No, it's just one day, and it's not like that much. I mean, it is a lot busier, but it's manageable with the staff we have. It's just kind of like everyone leaves like not with their tail between their legs, but just exhausted.
Yeah.
So
Full day. Yep.
one of
Makes
those
sense.
days. So, but it's a nice solid day. And then you've got VU graduation that Saturday, I think. So like that's always a busy day so it'll just be like a crazy,
interesting.
they all
Yeah.
kind of fell on at the same weekend. So it'll be a crazy weekend. So yeah, Other than that, everything's pretty good. We had to part ways with the kitchen manager at Birdie's this past week, which was tough. He was like a really good guy and really talented chef. But it was kind of just like he couldn't control his emotions 100%, and we just had enough minor issues that kind of was starting to turn into like a major thing where we just can't risk like losing employees and the culture that we want to promote there. So sometimes you have to make tough decisions like that. That was just kind of a hard one because I liked him a lot, and everyone did. It's just like there's this thing that he just can't help himself, and we can't risk like where the future of the restaurant. So.
Yeah, makes sense.
So just kind of dealing with stuff like that, but all is well.
Yeah, that's cool. This week we're diving into how to not get fired, how to be invincible to layoffs, because I think we've both worked for people, but I think this happened to me too. The second I switched from working for someone to on the management side, it becomes so crystal clear what is and is not, desirable in an employee. And that stuff just sticks out to you so much. So I figured it'd be helpful for us to share those things. So people can understand what managers like to see. I think people kind of know, but that there's just so much that's so little that takes almost no effort that really grinded on my gears when I was managing.
It's hard to take myself out of my own shoes too, and put myself in the shoes of an employee. But from my perspective, because I'm the owner and I know what I'm looking for, it just seems so simple of like, what you need to be doing and what you need to not be doing in order to excel and be like, you can work for us your whole career and be like really successful and move up and all that. But there are things that I think hold people back and, outside of just immaturity stuff. But there's a lot, there that you can unpack, but I feel like it could be very easy to just be very successful, and it's also easy for me to just have the mentality of like, why doesn't everyone just work like this, and it's not rocket science. So I'm curious if people will think like all this stuff is kind of basic and this makes sense, like just common sense type stuff, because that's kind of how a lot of it feels to me. But and I have worked for like in high school, in college, like I've had other bosses, but like once I graduated school, it's like, we just opened Le Peep here, and I was the man. I wasn't an owner, but I was the manager of the restaurant. So I don't have a ton of experience with that, but I've also had like to learn a lot, in this area, just in the development, just seeing myself, like looking back at myself, 14 years ago versus now. It's like, obviously I've come a long way, and I didn't really have that ownership mentality or manager mentality. And it just takes time to develop, but so hopefully it's, it's helpful and we learn something from each other too.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been thinking about this for years. Actually, I've kind of summed it up to, I have the core four of things I think you can do that are virtually no effort. This is not about, I think, you should be better at your job and you should want to be growing and stuff. I think that's kind of obvious to people. It's easier to keep people that are good at their job than people that are bad at their job. But there's four things I've found that take virtually no effort and really don't have anything to do with your skill at your job, but can make you so much more restrainable and make it so much harder for your bosses to let go of you. I want to rattle these off and just I want your feedback and your thoughts. So number one is, especially if you work like in an office place environment where there's a typical arrive and leave time, let's say it's 9 to 5, just be on time and be in your desk in those times. I recommend to people just pick either before work or after work and show up 15 minutes or stay 15 minutes past what the normal people do. So if everybody in the office gets there at 9, just show up 8:45 every day. That's all you need to do. Just be at your desk. You can even be scrolling TikTok at your desk in that time. But I think just the little bit of being there and being ready matters so much to managers. It's so frustrating, the guy that or girl that's 2-3 minutes late every day. And I think managers, especially if we're around and like near our teams, you notice that stuff just grates at you. You notice that so much.
Yeah.
But the people that leave like right when it's 5 o'clock, gone, peace.
Yeah, and like
done.
you said, even if you're scrolling TikTok, it's like have the George Costanza approach and just like at the very least like look frustrated, like look like you're working hard.
The Costanza thing is funny because it's 100% true.
Yeah.
If you just look like you're doing something, or the Scrubs was always wheel a dead body through the hospital. Like when you have something you're doing, it's a lot harder for managers to tell.
Right.
I'm not saying cheat the system, but
or if you're newer, like I love when a host comes and works for us for the first time and they constantly ask like, what should I be doing next? It's like I'm not expecting you to know what to do,
Yeah.
but like don't let me see you leaning against the server station, against the wall in the server station, or scrolling on your phone. Like just at the very least be like slowly walking through the dining room and like observing, and that just sends the message that like you care and you want to do a good job. And ask me what you want me to do, what we want you to do next.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. It all kind of falls in that category.
100%. Number 2 is your attitude. I think this is so underrated, but everybody knows when they're doing this or knows when it's being done to them. When your boss asks you to do something and you react in a way that tells your boss, you're not saying no, but you react in a way that tells your boss, I don't want to do this thing and I'm mad you asked me to do it. You're grumpy about it or you're unresponsive. Or you're like, oh yeah, I'll get to it.
Yeah.
That stuff drove me insane. Just with a good attitude, say, hey, sure. Yep, I'll get to it.
And if you have a lot on your plate, like communicate that, say like, okay, well, you did ask me to do the other things. So do you want me to do this first or you do that, what order do you want me to do this in?
Yeah. Yeah. I got these 3 tables that need food. I'm going to do that
Happy
real quick.
to get to it.
Yeah. That's all you need to do. But there was so many times when somebody was just like grumpy with me or dragging their feet on a task. And I'm like, this, you don't realize it, but this stuff puts you at the top of the list. And for like, if we have to cut people and lay people off, like you're the first person I think of. That's not a good thing.
Right.
Don't do that with your career. Number 3 is be honest with your boss. I think there's a natural inclination for us, like the imposter syndrome, where we all think we need to have it all put together. And if you ask your boss a question, especially about how you do a job, I think you think that that's a big negative, or your boss is going to think like, oh, I hired a person that doesn't understand anything. But I think the inverse happens. I think people that ask questions, like you were saying earlier, don't stand around. Ask me, hey, what should I be doing with my, what do you want me to do next? Or even if it's stuff you don't understand. I'm trying to think of an example, from my world. I don't understand how to get this permit pack in. I don't understand how to, who I need to call for X, Y, or Z. Like even asking those questions can tell your boss that you care and you want to do a better job. Instead of hiding it and waiting weeks for something to get done because you don't understand it and you're trying to ask other people when your boss is probably the person that knows anyway. Have you had anybody be like really frank with you
about that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Not a ton, because like what my managers, I guess for me, it would be like the general managers, and I'm used to that. Like, I don't know how to, gosh, I don't know. Like editing menus in Toast or something in our POS system, like how to add a new menu item if it's a special item, or updating the burger of the month in Toast, like things with technology that are like not super complex, but like they maybe haven't taken the time to like look at the free resources that Toast offers, and now they're and they'll just kind of lean on me, and some of that's a crutch. To where it's like I'll just ask Evan to do it, which like I don't love, you know?
Yeah.
So there's parts of that where it's like, did you like search it on Toast Central? Like, did you look this up or did you call Toast? Like I feel like I say that all the time. Did you call Toast yet?
Yeah.
No, I don't want to be on hold for, it's like, well, I don't either. I have other,
Yeah, that's a great point.
so I'm always happy. Like I always have the attitude of like, I'm happy to help any way possible. And there's obviously some things that like I need to coach them on. And I mean, that's a big part of my job, but there's the other side of it. It's like, did you go through any of the avenues that I'm going, I'm going to ask you to do,
Yeah.
you know?
That leads into my fourth one. Be a problem solver, not a problem creator. If you have an idea,
That's probably my favorite one. The
And-
most important one to me.
and people are like, no, we can't do that because of this, this, and this. It's like, okay, did we call those people? Did we talk to those people? Are we sure those are actually no's, or did you just say that because you don't want to do this thing? Yeah, I was watching I love watching, I don't actually watch any Mr. Beast videos, but I love watching him on podcasts and stuff talk about making videos. And then he recently did one where they walked through the pyramids, and he was talking to his team, and his team was like, it's the pyramids. We can't get into the pyramids. And he's like, maybe we can. Who did you talk to? They're like, oh, we called one guy and he said no in Egypt. And they're like, okay, well, did you talk to his boss? Did you ask other people? Are there other avenues? Like who's in charge? Did we ask any of these questions? They're like, no. It's like, just find a way to solve problems. You know, if your boss comes up with an idea, be like, okay, that's tricky, but we can try X, Y, and Z, and we can get there. Instead of being like, no, I don't think it'd work because of this and this and this.
Just
don't do that.
be a squeaky wheel. And I mean, that's kind of how we got, it's not a great example, but it's kind of how we got our liquor license in Cherville because there was none available. And I just kind of put it in my head, I'm going to call down to the state every month and I'll pray about it. Maybe God will open a door and like something will come about from it.
Yeah.
And after like 6 months, I just called down randomly, just, hey, do you have any 3-way liquor licenses available in Cherville, Indiana? And she said, oh yeah, we have 2. And that's a very valuable asset essentially, and so I like filled out the form immediately, drove it down to Indy and got the liquor license. But it's like, if I just kind of had the mentality of like, there's none available, we have to do beer only, sorry dad or sorry whoever, like that's just, but like persistence, is big.
Yeah.
So, but like piggybacking on top of that, for me, yes, that's very important. Like solving, if you come to me with a problem, come with a solution or an idea about what the solution could be, which kind of falls in that. But also, and maybe even like more importantly, is like, do you create drama or do you diffuse it? Because this business is like so relational, especially for managers that are managing a lot of people, and they might not like love everyone they work with, because you're not going to click with everyone. But it's really important, and it becomes very evident if you keep coming to me complaining about employees and not like if you're a manager and you're always like coming to our meetings like complaining about this server or that cook or this one person, it's like, well, what are you doing about it? It's and it feels like you're the one that has the problem,
Yeah.
So after a while, I mean, those people just kind of like weed themselves out because they can't. My goal is to have everything like copacetic everywhere,
Yeah.
and that's not realistic 100% of the time. But like, if there's one restaurant that's constantly having personnel and like just issues and drama and stuff, it's like, well, why are you not managing that effectively? Like you must not be doing something right, So those people just don't last for me. Like that's kind of the number one for me.
Interesting. It's personal drama. When you say drama, you're not talking about you're talking about like interpersonal relationships and stuff. Yeah. People that don't get along with other people and
yeah, but it could also be like what you were saying about just not showing up on time. Like if this manager is like, if it's getting to the point where they're not there a whole lot, like I don't know where our manager is, or I mean, I would kind of throw that in the drama category, even though it's not really, like if there's just lots of unanswered questions or issues around one person that center kind of around one person who's in that leadership role, then that's when I know like that person probably isn't the best fit.
Yeah.
And that's the key position for that. If that person's not doing a good job, then the whole restaurant can suffer.
Right.
So
right.
So that stems more with management. There is a part of that with like hourly staff. I just don't deal as closely personally with them. I do. I'll talk to them and all that. I'm just not managing them.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, I agree with all those.
Yeah.
So that was 4?
Yep. Those are my core 4. And again, it has nothing to do with like being good at your job. Mm-hmm. Those are just things that can be easy if you think about it with a good mentality.
Yeah. Like I hate the excuses, like if like here we were kind of talking to our manager last week about like, we can't be running out of Italian beef. Like we have to cook that. We have to. It takes time to prepare, like to prep it. So like we have to do it a day in advance, and then we'd like run out. And our lasagna is like a layered lasagna, same sort of thing. Takes time. Takes a lot of time to prep. And Zach kind of manages like he oversees the kitchen here, all the kitchens. So he'll like come in and he'll be like, we're 86th on Italian beef and our lasagna. Like why is this not done? Like we're only open 25 hours a week.
Yeah.
Like, do we have any sort of list, or is the manager asking at the end of the night, like, hey, to the kitchen manager, like, where are we at on everything? Do we need to get anything going tonight while the dishwashers are still here, that they can start prepping something, so we're not coming into tomorrow's shift like behind.
Yeah.
And if we just give excuses about that, and we don't have like solutions, or we're not, then it's like, dude, you got to do something. You got to try something, and the excuses don't work. So someone's got to drive that. So like, just try something. And then when you come to the meeting, like, hey, we tried the prep list thing. I mean, there's no reason that shouldn't work, but like, if it didn't work, you can explain.
Yeah.
Give some feedback. But like,
yeah, that's what the ideal employee does, right? Is, hey, we ran out of. They bring the problem and solutions to you as the manager. You're not the manager finding out like, oh, hey, our restaurant ran out of Italian beef 3 straight nights. They're coming, hey, 3 nights this week we ran out of Italian beef. We tried the prep list thing. We tried this. We might, a solution might be this, a solution might be that. Like that's all you need to do.
Right.
And that's the dream employee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're doing a good job, especially like in this industry, at least, when you're doing all those things and you're staying on top of stuff, it can be a very easy job. Mm-hmm. And if you're not doing that stuff well, the little things, then it can make your life really difficult and really stressful.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that goes for anyone. If you're just conscientious, staying on top of things, like your job can be very easy. And that's easy to say when I don't really have a boss, like if you have a bad boss who's, and it's a toxic work environment. I mean, that's a whole different topic, but
yeah. Right.
Did your perspective change when you went to Minnesota and cause you worked for your dad.
Yeah.
So like that was one experience. And then you had you had a boss in Minnesota at that job, and now you're your own boss with no employees right now.
Yeah.
Like, how did your perspective on some of this change over the years?
That's a good question.
Do you look back now, even when you were working with your dad, like before even Minnesota, and think like, wow, my perspective on all this is like wildly different than what it was back then?
Yeah, I feel like I could have helped the team be a lot more efficient at Steiner Homes, because I was kind of managing the office at that point. I feel like I could have helped the team be a lot more efficient, and just like some clear directives and what's important. And
through your experiences in Minnesota specifically, just seeing how like maybe an efficient. I didn't work there, but like maybe how an efficient office
100%
really
And just like how important it can be to have like clear goals and establish with the company where we're going. I don't think there was a lot of that. And then like, I don't know, this is kind of a tangent, but I think at Steiner Homes, I don't remember a specific promotion. It just kind of absorbed into the manager because I was the person around the most that knew the most. And I think with that, and because I had hired or been around in hiring a lot of the people there, and I was there longer than them, had the family name. Like, I think I carried a lot more respect at Steiner Homes. And then up in Minnesota, I don't think the same level of respect. I was just a guy, I don't think the same level of respect was there.
Like inherently.
Yeah. So I noticed a lot of this like managerial stuff more like, oh, this is annoying.
Yeah.
As far as like my, the core 4 attributes, like, because I didn't carry that respect, like I could have done things better, but we talked about that. Yeah, because I didn't carry that respect, like this kind of stuff grated on me more. Then yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Okay, when you were an employee, so my wife's a teacher, and we're parents of teenagers now. And I think as teenagers, we thought we were getting away with a lot. And in reality, like most of the adults knew, when we were getting into trouble or being squirrely or whatever, they just didn't care enough to really say anything because they're just going to make their life more difficult.
Yeah.
So they just kind of let it happen. Do you find anything like that in a managerial perspective where you were an employee, thought, oh, a boss is never going to notice when I do this, and now that you're an owner, you're like, okay, that stuff is actually really obvious.
Yeah. I think when you become a parent too, your perspective changes on that.
Yeah.
Like when you're hard on your kids, for just goofing off or whatever, making fun of someone or doing something stupid. It's like, now I feel like I'm thinking like my dad did, or I'm acting like my dad did back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes total sense. You just want the best for your kids. You want them to be like a good part of society. When it comes to like managing people in the workplace, I mean, I kind of go back to, the younger kids and them not knowing what to do or feeling like I did my job. I bust that table. So now I can like hang out in the server station, or now I can just BS with this person over here, or like I don't have to, I did my job.
Yeah.
So I think with them, it's a lot of like just keeping them focused and not like distracted and all that. And then when it comes to, managers, a lot of times, they can kind of do the same thing. Like if I have a manager that I know is not, when the red flags start to form, it's like spending too much time in the office. And what are you doing in the office? I know how much work goes in to this job when it comes to office related tasks. And I feel like you're in the office too much, what are you doing in there? So, lots of like smoke breaks. I mean, you have a lot of smokers in this industry, and it's just, it's constantly like rallying people and keeping them focused. And, but yeah, the biggest concern for me, again, is going back to managers, like when I feel like they don't know what they should be doing with this time. And that's why it's so important to hire for the position, because if you're hiring someone that like, man, this person seems out of our league. Like they've got professional experience and HR or whatever, like they communicate extremely well, all this stuff, but then they come in, then you hire them and they come into this industry, and it's like they don't want the responsibilities that come along with this specific job.
Yeah.
And maybe they want the opportunity to move up and be like a director of operations, or just have more just general opportunity and not be like the, in the restaurant 50 hours a week. Maybe they don't like long-term want that, but it's like, you have to want that now for the opportunity that you want in the future.
Yeah.
Because like, even if you're in that role, it's like, there are going to be, if you're promoted to a position where you don't really have to be there as much on the weekends, it's like, you have to want to be there on the weekends.
Yeah.
Like if something is going wrong and you're needed, like you need to recognize that you're needed and you need to want that, like, no, I want to get that resolved and like get this restaurant going smoothly so that like in the future, next week or a month from now, like I'm not needed to do this all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, so I've dealt with that a little bit where, people kind of weed themselves out because even if they're like, they look extremely qualified or overqualified, it's like, well, this isn't that kind of industry. You need someone managing the restaurants that like, maybe they're a little bit more simple and they don't understand, numbers as well as we would like, or like maybe they have some minor deficiencies, but like they are committed. They're going to be there. They're going to lead the team well. They're going to, because the biggest part of that job is like supporting the support staff. If without the support staff, without the servers and the bussers and the hosts, like we have no restaurant. So like, that's kind of my mentality too, is like my biggest role is to make sure like not only my managers are supported, but like the employees at each individual restaurant,
Yeah, for sure.
Like that's kind of the primary thing of what I do and what my managers do.
Yeah, that's huge. That's awesome. You touched on something that I think is really important too, is like your manager probably knows more than you, or at least more than you think. Like when I'm managing a CAD team, or I've done a lot, at least as far as the office tasks, I've done a lot of the office tasks related to home building. So I know how long it takes to put a permit together. I know how long it takes to make a marketing ad or do a contract or stuff. So like I kind of had a sixth sense for when people were screwing around and not really trying to do their job. I'm like, I don't expect you to be as fast as me at CAD. You're just learning a couple years in, but I can tell like you haven't really been doing anything. If this is all you're producing in a day. So yeah, I think, and as an employee, you can think, oh, I didn't get yelled at for that, so it must be fine. But maybe your manager is just like, oh, okay, I don't have time today or even this week to talk to that entry-level CAD person about how I know they're screwing around and not really getting work done.
Yeah.
But you log it away. You remember that stuff.
Yeah, I think there's a number of things that with my managers now that like they're all doing really well, but I have a lot of like little things that some of which I say to them on a regular basis, and some of which I'm like, maybe I don't bring that up, or I wait to bring that up. Like there are things, that I could probably talk to some of the managers about that I haven't yet, know. But you also don't want to just like bombard people with like, you're doing this wrong and you're doing this wrong and I need to see more improvement here. There's like an art to communicating with them too, so you don't discourage them because you want them to want to work for you. Yeah. But it's finding that balance of like when you bring things up, when you challenge them more on certain aspects of what they do, and what are the key things, if they're failing in an area that's like detrimental to the restaurant, like bring that up right away and get that resolved. But yeah, I agree.
This is kind of related. Is it easy for you to tell if someone at your restaurant doesn't love it there? Like doesn't love the company, doesn't love really anything about it?
Yeah, they say it with their actions, kind of the stuff we've talked about, just with like, not showing up on time and the inconsistency of like your attitude, I think is huge. Like if you're kind of wondering like what version of this person am I going to get today? It's like that makes it difficult for me to like coach you or for your staff to work under you if it's really inconsistent. You don't have to be like the happiest guy in the world, but just like a consistency, of in regards to your personality and how you're, coaching people and holding them accountable. Like, are you saying one day, are you saying like, hey, don't do it this way? And then the next day you're like absolutely freaking out on them for the same type of issue.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. Did you have any experience with that in Minnesota or Steiner Homes?
Yeah, I think in Minnesota, it was really hard for me to tell. I feel like the people that I was with loved the company, but one person in particular, I just couldn't button down what they wanted out of the job. They're really good, really talented, but I kind of felt like they were stifled and had tried to have conversations about it. I don't feel like I ever got like a real answer. And part of it was just like they're a quieter person, and I have a big, loud personality, and like I understand that not everybody's like that, but also I feel like this person, like I was their manager, and this person really held their cards close to their vest, like didn't want me to know what their real desire, and even if it was for my job, it's like, okay, you can tell me that, I don't care. But they never really wanted to tell me what their desires and goals were. And I think it hurt them. So I'm like, I'm here to help you, but it doesn't seem like it's like, I don't know where you want to go or what you want to do.
Yeah. Another thing that I find is extremely important that I'm constantly coaching my managers to think about is having the mentality, like it's a shift. When you're a manager versus maybe you were a server and you were promoted into a management position, like servers are so focused on just that one shift and how much money they can make. And they might have gotten promoted to that position because they're constantly doing side work and like just super self-motivated in a lot of ways. But at the end of the day, they're like very focused on that, like giving great service for that specific shift.
Yeah.
And then when they transition into management, you have to, just like we've talked about, like over the last 15 years, our perspective has changed a lot, just from what we've learned and our experiences and all that. But it's for them, it's like a very abrupt shift in their mentality, or it needs to be, where they need to start like thinking, 3 weeks to a month and a half out, as opposed to like, just the week that they're in. Like they're naturally already going to be thinking about the following week because they have to write the schedule, they have to do the orders and all that. But it's even more so important to like be planning for, like I was talking about the Masters dinner that we wanted to do at Birdie's like a month before we did that. And, Mother's Day, like I've been, and the VU graduation, like looking at the calendar, what is going on in your community? What's the trend of like what the weather's doing? Because, like it was nice last week on a fair amount, on like half the days, 3 days, it was like really nice. And we wanted to be prepared to seat our patio. And that doesn't mean just like getting the chairs and tables out there. That might mean like, let's redo the cafe lighting on the pergola. Let's restain the deck that covers the outdoor walk-in cooler. There's a lot of things that you can do to make your space great, or put your staff in a really strong position, that you can't just be like, oh, it's nice out today, let's get ready to seat the patio,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And a lot of times I have to drive that because the managers, especially if like the managers that I've talked about that have been promoted and are a little bit newer to it, they might not naturally be thinking this way. So like I'm used to, in my weekly emails, that's a big thing. Like a big part of what I'm doing is getting them to be looking out, not in the super distant future, but like, what's going on over the next week, 3 weeks to a month and a half, I would say, like getting them to think about that stuff. Because if we can put a little bit of effort, maybe not every day be working on the patio, but like over the course of the next 3 weeks, we can make sure the lighting's good out there, make sure the patio got pressure washed, get that scheduled, and just be planning that way. Like when I see that stuff, when I, that my manager doing that naturally, that's like, gold star.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah. That's huge. I think one thing that occurred to me just now is like, ask your manager how you can do better or how you can learn more. That question is never a negative. And then actually try and do that stuff if you have something.
Have you ever had like this might be a bad question for you, but like, have you ever witnessed or had someone working under you or alongside you that like you were pretty confident that this person was going to get either fired or laid off, depending on what you're going through, and they were able to like save themselves by changing what they were doing and improve upon that to save themselves from losing their job?
Yeah, I can't think of anybody specifically.
Yeah, if knows the answer, I mean, you don't have to like make something up.
Yeah, because I feel like I kind of did it. And this is why, up in Minnesota, and this is why they offered to keep me around, even if they were going to change my position. That's why they switched me to sales. So my first year in, I had my first performance review, and it didn't go, like we had a bad year, but it didn't go great. And so I was like, I really want this job to work, and asked them a lot of questions on how I can do better. What does the path look like? What is, and tried to do a lot of that stuff. And I think that was probably a big moment for them that cemented me as like, oh, Adam's a great, I kept hearing that Adam's a great culture fit. I think just that conversation is probably what did it. I had a general positive attitude too. I think that helped a lot, but the one-on-one conversation where I'm like, I want this job. What's the path to getting better? And
and I think that experience that you had, I've seen that. I've witnessed that a lot of times within my restaurant or my business where it's really just like, are they in the right seat on the bus? Do we want them on the bus? That's the first question. Like, can they be on the bus? And then if the answer is yes, but they're not, maybe they're just in the wrong seat,
Yeah.
So it's important to recognize that, because like if you lose someone that could have done really well in a different position, I mean, now you're potentially hiring for two positions, and it's always more expensive to hire new and train than it is to like keep existing staff and maybe like shift what they're doing.
Yeah. I think that's something people don't really understand. Maybe they do, but businesses really don't want to fire people. Whether it's just the awkward conversation or the, like you said, the hard cost of replacing someone, businesses try so hard to not fire people. So you have to like, if you get fired, you kind of have to convince the ownership to fire you. Like you've got to do a lot of bad. I'm sure there are outliers and examples and stuff, but if you just try, you'll probably be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that way 100%. I never want to have to fire someone. I always want to like try and make it work. Not that I don't want to deal with a difficult conversation. Yeah. Like it's not fun to let people go. Some situations are more difficult than others when you're firing someone. But yeah, that's always like last resort for sure.
Yeah. And back to what you said about like, do we even want you on the bus? Like, be someone that's wanted on the bus. I think that's a super easy one. Just like,
and that goes to like back to basics, like showing up on time, having a positive attitude, like asking what you can be doing, not being lazy, not being distracted. Like,
don't get in fights with your coworkers.
Yeah,
like,
right.
This is kindergarten stuff. You don't have to share specifics, and definitely don't share names. But what's like the easiest reason you've ever had to fire someone?
Stealing.
Let's lay someone off. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely won't say any names, but here when it was Le Peep, I had a manager who's obviously no longer with us. This was a while back, not that long ago, maybe 5 or 6 years. she had a gambling addiction. Don't recommend it.
Don't recommend it.
But like this is just the only reason I would share this is because like I think it's important for restaurant owners or someone, maybe any owner, depending on how you do your cash drops, like to consider. So she had like all these deposits that she was supposed to be taking to the bank, and then and she wasn't. And I don't know, our CFO at the time probably should have caught this, because it was like she was behind 30 days. So she would take that money, go to the casino, and like with the thought of like, I've got all this cash, like I need to make it back. I need to, and dug herself into a deeper hole of about 30 days worth of deposits. And we finally caught it. Like we should have caught it within like 3 days.
Yeah.
Like, why haven't you gone to the bank? She's having all these excuses. And then she finally said like, she was at Family Express and like someone broke into her car, and we're like, no, they didn't.
Yeah.
Like 30 days of deposits. Like you never took to the bank. So she finally admitted to it and then paid it back, like got a loan from her dad or something and paid it back. But we would have pressed charges, and then we changed our practices to where Joni, who works in the office with me every weekday, because I guess Monday through Thursday, she's off on Fridays. So every Monday through Thursday, she goes to each business, gets all the deposits. And there's just that extra layer of accountability for them, because you don't want to give anyone an opportunity to make a decision that they don't want to make or that's going to hurt them or whatever, Like you don't want that temptation there.
Yeah.
So if they know like Joni's coming every day to get the money, then it reduces the risk of like them doing something stupid like that.
Yeah.
So that was kind of one of the easier ones.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. They're usually a little bit harder, like just, personality stuff. You're creating too much drama. It's kind of like there's some subjective things that like maybe we don't agree on and they kind of push back a little bit. Those are like the harder ones. Did you ever have to fire anyone?
Me personally, no. I was at the table for a couple of them. Just like, and had some hard conversations with people. But yeah, it's similar stuff. Like I was saying, businesses don't really want to fire people. So if it is, it was theft, stealing supplies or materials, or like time theft of saying you're at work and you're home.
Yeah.
You're not at the job. And like clocking in on an hourly position. So stuff like that was like, it still sucks. It's not fun, but it's easy at that point.
Yeah.
'Cause at least you as a owner / manager feel, there's no gray area in your mind. There's nothing that you feel like is on your conscience when they're going to go and do something like that. It really makes it easy.
Yeah. The goal is always to like coach people and help them see what you're seeing so they can save their job and be the best employee that they can be. Like that's my ultimate and first goal with that. But like when you make that, when you have that realization of like, this is not working and it's not a good fit and it's hurting the productivity and the culture and all that, like you can't delay on that, making that move. Like it's at least from my experience, it's like, that's the worst thing that you can do is like, maybe it'll work out. Like, yeah, maybe you need 3 weeks to like do your due diligence and talk to your staff and like get some more information. And you don't want to react hastily because there's a lot of planning that a lot of times that goes into preparing for what do we do next when we don't have this person working for us.
Yeah.
That's important, but that doesn't mean like wait 6 months or like just hope it's going to get better or, cross your fingers. Like that's the worst thing you can do because like now you run the risk of losing really good people that like that do promote the culture and that are productive. So that would be one of my recommendations, on all the stuff we've talked about. I think all of this stuff's really important and I think about this a lot, but that would be one of those things. Like if you're in that position, don't don't just like twiddle your thumbs and hope that it gets better, because it probably won't. And then you do that and like everyone comes up to you and thanks you. And it's like, okay, it's always like, I should have done this a long time ago.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. If you have other employees thanking you for another employee decision, like,
yeah,
it's
you made the right
obvious.
call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. Anything exciting this week?
Just kind of the normal, the usual stuff, like lots of little stuff, you know. I'll bring that. I'll think about that and bring it up. And you know, if we're doing little things to improve the business, I feel like, you know, because then I can report back on how that's going and if it is making an impact. So a lot of that kind of stuff, making sure that we're, you know, just stabilized all the restaurants going into the summer, hiring and all that. It's important. So gets a lot busier. You know, school kids out of school, college kids home, and all that. So just a lot of preparing for that. So, yeah. How about you?
I got my goal is to get 2 YouTube videos up this week. I have scripts basically written for 2 different ideas. So, I'm actually going to try and go on site and film some of them. Not that I need to, but I think it'll be helpful to see like lumber framing instead of me sitting in my office. So I'm going to try and find somewhere today.
Yeah. I'm still like posting my shorts and stuff, but I have definitely like not put in as much effort as I was initially, which like I want, you know, I just want to find a good rhythm, you know, like it's not sustainable for me to like make a video of me talking about whatever in the restaurant every single week. Like there's a little too much going on, but the shorts I seem to get a fair amount of subscribers from that. And like, I do that stuff anyways. So I'm just going to kind of roll with that. And then if I have an idea for like, you know, 5-10 minute video, like I can still do that stuff periodically, but a little bit more work for me to put into that.
I'm still throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. I still haven't figured out something that works, that's low effort and high impact. You know, and even my high effort stuff hasn't worked either. So
I think the low effort stuff is out there. You know, I think
for long form, short form I think I've got it more dialed in. But getting the 5-10 minute stuff on YouTube that's low effort has been really hard for me.
How many subscribers do you have?
460, I think.
Okay,
as of this morning.
That's good. I broke 100. I texted you.
Woo.
I'm at like 105 right now.
So
what? Nice. Wait, for anyone that might still be listening, what's your handle? At Burnham Design, if you want to follow Adam, right?
Burnham Design Co. I think,
and I think I'm Evan.Costas, so you can follow both of us on there. And subscribe to this channel too.
Yeah, sweet. Thanks for listening.
Yep. Until next time.